Wisniewski here with Land and Legacy Group talking about wetland mapping. And in this video, I'm going to show you 3 tools that you can use to locate wetlands on your property. And 2 of them are free, and then 1 of them does have a monthly subscription. So let's dive right in. And the first one, this should be available pretty much to any county. So I'm doing Washington County right now. But if you Google, Washington County GIS or Dodge County GIS, even if you look on the tax record, sometimes you can see like view interactive map, and that'll link you to the GIS system. But what I'm going to do is just click interactive map here, and it'll load up. But what you want to do is you want to show the wetland layers that overlay on the properties, and I'll show you how to get there once this loads up. So you start to see all the roads, the townships, stuff like that. And I'm just going to zoom in, town of West Bend. You'll start to see all the parcels populate. But up, usually it'll be kind of looking like this, looks like layers. So you'll see layer list. And you just got to look around. Some will be labeled differently. But I'm going to go ahead and click the Wisconsin wetland inventory. And here you'll see some gold start to mark up. So these are, according to the Wisconsin DNR, these are mapped wetlands. So as you can see, when I zoom in, what I'm also going to do is this is just going to remain this gray color, but I like to operate on an aerial map view. So I'm going to go ahead and change my base map. Now this is saying 2022, which should be pretty accurate. But you can see this person's pond is labeled as wetlands, which is common. You see, and here's another pond. I'm going to go. Yeah, you see all these people's ponds are mapped that way. Don't ask me how they do that. But we'll just go here. So there's some wetlands here that would show up, and I'll show you a different view that it's why I pay the subscription, because this is good. But as you can see, it's kind of hard to view. Now, like I said, this comes from the Wisconsin DNR. So what I'm going to do now is actually head over to the DNR website. So if you Google Wisconsin DNR Surface Water Data Viewer, and I'm going to click the second one. The first one you could click, but it's going to have another click to get in there. So this is where a lot of people or a lot of GIS systems pull their information from. And I'll be honest, these first 2 websites can be pretty slow, depending on obviously your internet. But I've just found that they're not always the quickest, but they do work. And so I'm going to zoom in. So we're Washington County again, and I don't remember exactly where I was on the county, but let's just zoom in because I know there'll be wetlands by this waterway right here. So again, if you don't change the base map, it's just going to show as like this white color. So I'm going to go ahead and get my head out of the way. I'm just going to go ahead and change. So I want to see mapped wetlands. Okay, you can see that gold color show up again. And then what I also want to do is I want to turn on air photos, because what air photos are going to do is give me that aerial, basically like a satellite image. It's like the base map on the GIS system. Like I said, they're not always the fastest websites. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, it makes sense that there's water running right here, and you can kind of just tell it's not the easiest to see, but just based on like the vegetation, you can kind of guess that those would be wetlands. And if you zoom out, it'll load up. We'll start to see, here's where that creek is flowing. So you can see the wetlands there's a pond right there. So what you can do is you can overlook your whole property and then see what layers pop up. But what I'm also going to do, so these are the 2 free. These are totally free. Just Google them up. The GIS is per county. The Wisconsin DNR one, you can pretty much go all over the state with that. As you can see, look what pops up, over, these are all mapped wetlands basically. What I use the most, it's called Land ID. So I'm just in a Discover map right now, basically. And we're just it's basically the same thing. But you can see, okay, I got a little bit different shading. That's because I don't have a base map on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to satellite. And here you got your imagery. You can do a couple different ones. They just show a little bit differently. But what I'm going to then do is I'm going to go over to my overlays and I'm just going to hit wetlands. And this I just like because it just stands out a lot more. As you can see in these, when you have the base map, I mean, it's gold and you have a lot of brown, so it kind of blends in. Same with here, just, it's kind of harder to see. This is just, it's a lot of green, and then the wetlands are blue. So we'll just zoom out a little bit here. And this is, if I close these, I just want to drag this. So this right here is the Jackson Marsh. So it makes sense that this shows up as wetlands, but you can see how big that system is. As I zoom in here, where this would be really, really important is, for example, you have a driveway that comes through. And what most likely had to happen is when these people put their driveways in, they probably needed permits in order to be able to do that. And then these wetlands were most likely delineated. This one might not just be caught up, or the mapping is just slightly off. I mean, these aren't 100% on the location. But you can see it follows that driveway. And so they probably got delineated, or, the driveway was there and then they were delineated and the people remapped those. But same thing here, you see how this just kind of splits through. That probably was most likely delineated when they put the driveway in. And then even here, you can see how there's a long driveway, borders the wetland, and then it crosses that wetland there and it kind of just stops right there. So that's why I use it mostly for that. Like if people are looking to build on a property, I want to know where those wetlands are, especially for driveway access and then also building sites. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit more. Maybe we can find one, here's a good one. This guy had this big wetland in the front. So you can see how everything kind of goes around there. Same thing with this guy right here. You can just kind of see how those are. So if somebody wanted to put up like a shed or something like that, especially on a property like this, it looks like maybe he does have a shed or something. Maybe, he wanted one way back here. You can pull this up to see where that approximate wetland line is, just to see if that impacts anything. So this, I believe, is $80 a month or $79.99, whatever you want to call it. And I just like this interface a lot better. What I sometimes will do, I will start on Land ID, and then I'll also work with the DNR one and the GIS one just to compare the three. What I also like about Land ID, and I don't get paid from Land ID, so don't worry about it, is the FEMA floodplain as well. Because oftentimes when you have wetlands, depending on the elevation and if there's like water flowing and stuff like that, you will also have FEMA floodplain. So if I turn that on, and I'm going to turn the wetland one off, you can see that this color is all floodplain. So when we get to something like this again, if these homes were, a little bit farther south, they would be paying most likely flood insurance for that. And sometimes when you put a driveway, depending on the classification of the flood zone, that driveway may have to reach a certain elevation, and that has to do with emergency vehicles coming through. Because if we had ever had a flood and your driveway is below that elevation, there's potential that it could flood and block emergency vehicles from coming through. That's what I've heard from a couple of townships. But this will mostly have to do with flood insurance. I have seen where a person was paying flood insurance, and as I looked around on FEMA also has a floodplain map that it's free. You can go on that. But I showed him a couple of maps that showed his house was actually not in floodplain, and then he contacted the insurance company, and they actually stopped requiring that coverage. So usually when you see wetlands, you will see floodplain, not all the time, but the two do work pretty hand in hand with that. So that is just 3 resources that you can start using if you wanted to check on if there were wetlands on your property. If you do have a property in Wisconsin and you wanted to know, hey, where are wetlands and potentially floodplain on my property, you want me to just make you a quick map, just reach out to me. Email would probably be best, al@landandlegacygroup.com, or drop a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for checking out this video, and we'll see you on the next one.